What if the man you once loved, who disappeared without a trace, came back after 15 years? Aree spent years fighting for survival, raising her children alone, never knowing the truth behind his sudden departure. But when an unexpected message forces her to face him again, the secrets he's hiding could shatter everything she thought she knew. Can she forgive him? Or will the truth be too much to bear? The answers lie in the past, but can they move forward together? Or is it too late? Stay tuned until the end for the shocking truth, and make sure you subscribe, because this is a story you don't want to miss. Hit that subscribe button now and join Aree on a journey of pain, healing, and unexpected redemption. You'll want to know what happens next. For 15 years, she lived a life few could imagine. A woman who once held dreams of love and comfort now spent her days collecting trash. Her name was Aree, a mother of two, working tirelessly in the hot sun, gathering discarded scraps, all to feed her children and keep them safe. Her husband, once the man she adored, had vanished without a trace. At first, she believed he was lost, a victim of some tragedy. But the years passed, and the silence grew louder. She could never shake the feeling that something was wrong. Her heart, once full of love and trust, began to harden with the weight of unanswered questions. Why had he left? Why had he abandoned his family? One day, after years of searching, she finally found a lead. Her pulse quickened. Could it be? The man she once loved was living in a luxurious apartment, surrounded by wealth and comfort. Her hands shook as she stood outside the building, her eyes scanning the entrance. She pushed the door open and walked in. The air inside was cold, filled with the scent of expensive perfume and polished marble. Her heart raced. She moved through the lobby like a shadow, her footsteps echoing in the silence. Then she saw him, her husband. But he was not the man she remembered. His face was different, older, but his eyes still held a familiar emptiness. She took a step forward, the weight of the years pressing down on her chest. Aree? His voice was barely a whisper. She stopped in her tracks. The shock hit her like a cold wave. How could he still remember her? Why did you leave? She asked, her voice trembling. His eyes dropped to the floor. The truth was about to be revealed. I left because I couldn't live with you anymore, he said slowly. The words cut through her like a knife. She took a step back, the world around her spinning. She had been collecting trash for all these years, for nothing. He didn't leave because of money, or some cruel twist of fate. He left because he simply couldn't face the reality of their life anymore. Aree stood there, frozen, as the cold truth sank into her soul. The life she had been living, the pain, the struggle, all of it had been for nothing. Her heart shattered. But as she looked around the apartment, a thought began to form. Was he really living the life he wanted? Was all this wealth truly worth the price he had paid? She walked out, her mind spinning with a million thoughts. The truth had set her free, but it had also torn her apart. The world outside was still the same. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow across the sky. But for Aree, nothing would ever be the same again. Aree stumbled out of the building, her legs weak beneath her, her hands trembling. The weight of the truth pressed against her chest like a heavy stone, a burden that she had carried for years without knowing its full weight. She could hardly breathe. Her mind was a blur. The image of her husband standing there, the man she once loved, haunting her every thought. Why had he left? Why had he abandoned her and their children for all these years? Had it been the money? Had it been his desire for a life of luxury? But the question that tore at her heart the most was, did he ever truly love her? She had believed in their love so fiercely, believed that they were meant to be together. But now, all that remained were shattered pieces of a broken dream. The world outside the apartment was still the same. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow across the streets. But for Aree, it felt as if the light had dimmed. She walked aimlessly, her footsteps echoing in the silence, each one a reminder of the years she had spent in darkness, in the shadows of her own grief. She could still hear his voice in her head, the words he had spoken to her, the coldness of his confession. I couldn't live with you anymore. Those words had shattered her. They had torn down everything she had ever believed in, everything she had ever hoped for. Aree stopped in the middle of the street, her eyes staring blankly ahead. The bustling city around her seemed distant, a world she no longer belonged to. The wind blew through her hair, but it didn't bring her any comfort. Her heart ached, her soul empty. She had been searching for him for so long, but now that she had found him, she wished she hadn't. She wanted to scream, to release all the pain and frustration that had been building up inside her. But all she could do was stand there, frozen in the reality of what she had just learned. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a phone ringing. She fumbled for her phone in her pocket, her fingers numb. It was a message from her daughter. "Mom, where are you? We miss you." Her heart clenched. She had neglected them for so long, but they were still waiting for her. They needed her. She could feel the tears welling up in her eyes. She had been so consumed by her search for her husband, so lost in her own pain, that she had forgotten the most important thing in her life: her children. She took a deep breath, wiping away the tears that had begun to fall. No matter what her husband had done, she could not let this defeat her. She had to be strong. Aree walked to a nearby bench and sat down, staring at the city before her. It was bustling, alive with the energy of people living their lives, but she felt disconnected from it all. She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the sun wash over her face. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel the grief, the loss, the anger, but then, slowly, she opened her eyes again. The world around her was still the same, but she was different. The truth had changed her. She had spent 15 years of her life searching for answers, but now she understood that the answers didn't matter. What mattered was what she chose to do with her life from this moment on. Her children needed her. She had to be there for them. She stood up, feeling a newfound strength within her. Her heart was still broken, but it no longer controlled her. She would no longer be defined by the man who had left her. She would no longer allow his abandonment to dictate her worth. As she walked away from the bench, a sense of clarity washed over her. It wasn't about revenge or anger. It wasn't about finding out why he had left. It was about moving forward. She would make sure her children never felt the void he had left behind. She would fill their lives with love, with hope, with the strength she had found within herself. She knew it wouldn't be easy. The road ahead would be hard, but for the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope. She wasn't alone. She had her children, and that was enough. Aree made her way home, the weight on her shoulders lighter than it had been in years. As she approached her house, she could see her children waiting for her on the porch, their faces lighting up when they saw her. Her daughter ran to her, throwing her arms around Aree. "I missed you, Mom," she cried. Aree hugged her tightly, her heart swelling with love. "I missed you too, sweetheart," she whispered. Her son came running up, his face full of joy. "Are you okay, Mom?" he asked. Aree smiled, for the first time in what felt like forever. "I'm okay, my love. We're okay." She would no longer allow the past to define her. She would no longer allow the man who had left her to have any more power over her heart. She had found the strength to move on, and, with her children by her side, she would build a new life, one filled with love, hope, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. As the sun set behind her, Aree took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past finally lift from her shoulders. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, she was ready to face it head-on. Aree stood there, her heart heavy with emotion, her children beside her, their innocent faces looking up at her with nothing but love. She held them tightly, almost afraid to let go. For so long, she had been lost in the pain of betrayal, but now, in this quiet moment, it was clear to her. They were her world. They were the reason she had fought so hard to survive. Yet even in this moment of peace, a part of her couldn't shake the nagging emptiness that lingered. Her husband's betrayal still gnawed at her soul. His words echoed in her mind. I couldn't live with you anymore. The haunting truth of his abandonment clawed at her. How could he leave them so easily? So callously? How could he live with himself knowing the pain he had caused? She longed for answers, for some explanation, but in the end, what difference would it make? Her daughter squeezed her hand, pulling her from her thoughts. Mom, are we going to be okay? Her daughter's eyes were wide with concern. Aree smiled gently, forcing herself to be strong. Yes, sweetheart, she said softly. We're going to be just fine. Her son looked up at her with those wide, trusting eyes. Will we ever see Dad again? The question hit her like a blow to the chest. Aree's heart skipped a beat. She had promised herself she would never speak of him again. But her children had a right to know. They deserved the truth, no matter how painful. Aree knelt down in front of them, looking into their eyes. Her voice steady, but filled with sorrow. Your dad, he made a choice. She began, and that choice was to leave us. He left because he couldn't be the man we needed him to be. Her daughter frowned, trying to understand. But Mom, we need him. Why didn't he want us? The question sliced through her like a blade. Aree took a deep breath, struggling to hold back her tears. Sometimes, people make choices that hurt the ones they love, and we can't control what they do. She paused, her heart aching. But we control how we move forward, and we will move forward together. Her son took her hand, his grip small but firm. Do you still love him? Aree's heart broke at the innocence of his question. She hesitated for a moment, then slowly shook her head. I thought I did, she said, her voice cracking. But sometimes, love isn't enough to hold two people together. Sometimes, we have to let go. She felt a weight lift from her chest, as if the act of speaking the truth had freed her in a way she hadn't anticipated. She had been carrying so much inside, trying to protect them, trying to protect herself. But now, she was faced with the truth of what had happened. And as painful as it was also liberating. The moment hung between them, like a thread that was finally being severed. She had let go of him in her heart, and now she would have to let go of him in every other way too. Aree stood up, brushing the dust from her knees. Come on, she said softly. Let's go inside. We'll have dinner together. Just the three of us. Her children smiled, relieved by her calm demeanor, and followed her inside the house. But as Aree closed the door behind her, a strange sensation washed over her. It was as if the shadows were closing in again, and despite the warmth of her family around her, she felt a cold, deep unease. She set the table for dinner, but her thoughts kept drifting back to him. Her husband, the man who had chosen wealth and freedom over his family, over her, the man who had abandoned them without a second thought. What if he was living the life he had always dreamed of? What if he had moved on, found someone new, and forgotten about them entirely? The thought made her chest tighten. She wanted to believe that she could move on, that she could bury the past and focus on her children. But something inside her couldn't shake the need for closure. She needed to know if he was truly happy without her, or if he had made a mistake. The thought gnawed at her, eating away at the resolve she had built so carefully over the years. And then, as if on cue, her phone rang again. Aree froze, her heart skipping a beat. Her phone had been silent all evening, and now, this sudden ring startled her. She glanced at the screen, and for a moment, she thought her heart might stop. It was a message from him. Her hands shook as she opened it, her eyes scanning the words. Aree, I've made a terrible mistake. I can't stop thinking about you. I need to see you. Please. Aree felt a rush of emotions flood through her. Confusion, anger, disbelief. Why now? Why after all this time? After everything he had put her through? After all the years of silence? He suddenly wanted to speak? Her heart raced. Was this some kind of cruel joke? Was he playing with her emotions again, like he had done so many times before? She stared at the phone, her finger hovering over the screen. Every part of her wanted to delete the message, to block him from her life once and for all. But there was another part of her, the part that had once loved him so deeply, the part that longed for answers, that wanted to know why he had left, why he had chosen to abandon them. Her hand shook as she typed a response. Why now? After all this time, why do you want to speak to me? She hit send, her heart pounding in her chest. She waited, and then the message came. Because I've been living a lie. I've been fooling myself all these years. And I need to see you. To explain everything. Aree's breath caught in her throat. What could he possibly say? What could he say that would change anything? She had already made her peace with the past. She had already let go of him. But now, she was faced with the truth once more. Aree stood motionless, the phone in her trembling hand, her eyes fixed on the screen. The words of his message burned into her mind, each syllable heavy with meaning. I've been living a lie. I've been fooling myself all these years. And I need to see you. To explain everything. The weight of his words pressed down on her like a suffocating fog. For so many years, she had struggled to survive without him, to piece together a life shattered by his absence. She had built walls around her heart, protected herself from the pain, from the uncertainty. But now, his words shattered those walls, and the floodgates of emotion opened wide. Her heart raced, her breath quickened. She was caught between two worlds, the world of the woman she had become, strong, independent, and the woman who had once loved him with all her heart. What did he want from her now? What could he possibly say that would change the years of betrayal, the endless nights of wondering where he had gone, why he had left them behind? She had lived in the shadow of that question for so long, and now, he wanted to reopen the wound. Aree squeezed her eyes shut, as if she could erase the pain with the simple act of closing her eyelids. But the pain lingered, the memories flooding back, the laughter, the promises, the love they had shared before it all crumbled into dust. Her phone buzzed again. A message from him. Aree, please. I'm sorry. I've been a coward. But I can't live with myself knowing I hurt you. I need to make it right. Please meet me. Her hands clenched into fists. Was he truly sorry? Could his words undo the years of suffering he had caused? Could he really make amends for the emptiness he had left behind? Aree's pulse pounded in her ears as she stood frozen in place, the storm of emotions whirling inside her. Her eyes drifted to her children, who were sitting at the table, innocently eating their dinner. They had no idea what was happening in her mind, the storm that was brewing within her heart. She could feel the tension tightening in her chest, the need to answer him, to understand why, to finally find closure. But at what cost? What would it mean for her children if she opened that door again? What would it mean for her to face him after all these years, after everything that had happened? Her hands shook as she set the phone down on the table. The weight of the decision was unbearable. She wanted to yell, to scream, to throw the phone out the window and never think of him again. But that would be too easy, wouldn't it? The truth was, she wanted to know. She wanted to know why. She wanted to hear him say the words that had been haunting her for years. She needed to know if the man she had once loved was truly sorry, if he had changed, if he had learned anything at all from the pain he had caused her. But what if it was all a lie? What if he was just playing her, pretending to be remorseful, when all he truly wanted was to alleviate his own guilt? Aree closed her eyes again, taking in a deep breath, feeling the tears threaten to spill from her eyes. The truth was, she was scared. Scared of the answers he might give. Scared of the emotions that might resurface. Scared of the pain she had worked so hard to bury. But then, she thought of her children, of the little faces that depended on her. They had no father, no protector, no one to turn to accept her. They had been through enough, and they needed her strength. Aree's thoughts swirled in a dizzying whirlpool of confusion. But deep down, she knew the only way to move forward was to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. She picked up the phone again, her fingers hovering over the screen. And then slowly, she typed a reply. Where and when. The message sent. Her heart stopped, and for a moment, the world seemed to stand still. Aree sat back in her chair, her mind racing, her thoughts clouded by uncertainty. She had opened the door. There was no turning back now. The phone buzzed almost immediately. A message from him. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. The old park. The one by the river. Aree's stomach twisted. The old park. It was where they had spent so many afternoons together when they were young. Before life had changed. Before everything had fallen apart. Tomorrow, at 3 p.m., she would meet him there. Her mind spiraled with questions. What would happen when they came face to face? Would he finally tell her everything? Would she be able to forgive him? Or would this meeting just open old wounds, making everything worse? Aree stood up, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on her once more. She looked at her children again, their faces glowing with innocence, with love, with hope. She had promised herself that she would always protect them, no matter what. But was it possible to protect them from the truth? Was it possible to protect herself from the past she had buried so deeply? The hours passed slowly. The night stretched on, the silence in her home thick and suffocating. Aree lay awake in bed, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. She replayed everything over and over again. The messages, the park, the river, the pain, the betrayal. The past seemed to rise up from the shadows, grabbing hold of her heart once more. And yet, she couldn't stop thinking about it. She couldn't stop thinking about him. The clock ticked on, the sound of each passing second deafening in the stillness of the night. At 3 p.m., she would face him. She would finally know the truth. And no matter what happened, no matter what he said, Aree knew one thing for certain. She was no longer the woman she had been all those years ago. She was stronger now. She had survived. And whatever the truth was, whatever came of that meeting, she would be ready to face it. For her children, for herself, and for the future. The following afternoon, Aree stood at the gates of the old park. Her breath caught in her chest as she gazed across the river. The familiar landscape now seeming distant, foreign, almost haunting. The park was just as it had been, the willow trees swaying gently in the breeze. The old wooden bench, where they had sat together countless times, laughing, dreaming, loving. But now, everything felt different. Everything was charged with the weight of years, of broken promises, and a love that had slipped through her fingers like water. Aree walked slowly, her steps heavy with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Her mind raced with questions. What had brought him here today? What had changed for him after all these years? Was this truly an apology? Or was it a plea for forgiveness for his own guilt? Her heart pounded in her chest as she neared the bench. And then she saw him. He was sitting there, looking older, worn, as if time had carved deep lines into his face. The man who had once been her world, the man she had loved so fiercely, now appeared a shadow of the person he once was. He stood when he saw her, his eyes searching hers for some sign of recognition, some sign of forgiveness. But Aree stood still, her heart locked away behind a wall of pain and uncertainty. He took a cautious step forward, his voice barely above a whisper. Aree. Her name fell from his lips like an apology, but she remained silent. She couldn't speak. The words that had once been so easy to say now felt too heavy to form. For a long moment, there was only the sound of the wind, the rustling of leaves, the gentle flow of the river. Aree could feel his gaze on her, but she refused to meet it. She could not look at him. Not yet. She wasn't sure she could ever look at him the same way again. Finally, he spoke, his voice thick with emotion. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I hurt you in ways I can never undo. But I need you to understand. I was scared. I was running from everything, from the responsibility, from the life we had built. And I thought that leaving would make it easier for both of us. But all it did was break everything apart. Aree could feel the tears welling in her eyes, but she fought them back. She had cried too many tears for him already. But the weight of his words, the rawness of his regret, pierced through the walls she had so carefully built. And now, he continued, his voice trembling, I've lost everything. I've lost you. I've lost my children. I've lost the family I never truly understood how to appreciate. And I don't know how to fix it, but I want to try. Aree took a deep breath, the cold air filling her lungs, and finally turned to face him. Her eyes met his, not with anger, not with hate, but with sorrow. A deep, unspoken sorrow that they both carried. Do you really think you can fix it? She asked, her voice steady but broken. After all these years, do you think I can just forget what you did? His gaze faltered, but he didn't look away. I don't expect you to forget, he said softly. I only ask that you understand. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to leave. I was selfish, and I regret every day that I was too afraid to face the truth. Aree looked at him for a long time, studying his face, searching for something she couldn't name. There was no easy answer, no simple way to undo the damage he had caused. But then, she thought of her children. She thought of how they had grown without a father, of the days when they had needed him, and he had been absent. And she realized something. Forgiveness wasn't for him. It wasn't even for the man who had left her behind. Forgiveness was for her, for the woman she had become, for the mother who had fought so hard to raise her children alone. I can't forgive you today, she whispered, her voice barely audible. But I will. One day I will. But it will take time for me to heal, and for us to rebuild what we lost. He nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. I'll wait, Aree. I'll wait for however long it takes. The silence hung between them, heavy with all that was unsaid. And in that moment, Aree realized that sometimes closure didn't come in the form of answers or apologies. It came in the form of acceptance. Accepting the past, accepting the pain, and slowly learning to live with it. She turned away, taking one last look at him before walking toward the exit. The park, the river, the memories, they would always be a part of her. But now, she was moving forward. As she walked away, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over everything. She felt a new sense of peace settle within her. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, she was ready to face it. And as the screen faded to black, Aree's voice echoed softly, filling the silence with her heartfelt message. Sometimes, the past will try to pull you back, but you have to keep moving forward. You have to find the strength to forgive, not for anyone else, but for yourself. And remember, it's never too late to make a change. And with that, the screen flickered back to life. If you've been moved by Aree's journey, if you've ever felt the pain of betrayal, or found the courage to move forward, please don't forget to subscribe. Because this story isn't just hers. It's all of ours. Join us, and let's share the journey together. The words lingered, a call to action wrapped in hope and resilience. And as the screen faded to black, the feeling of closure, of beginning anew, stayed with the viewer, a reminder that sometimes we have to take the first step toward healing. Don't forget to subscribe and share this story with those who need it most.